Putin, again, makes $130,000 a year. He's worth $200 billion. You're a friend.
Yeah,
How much is he paying you to suck?
In this episode of the PBD Podcast, the sugar honey iced tea hits the fan when the conversation shifts from defending Tucker Carlson to an all-out verbal brawl over Russia and its leader, Vladimir Putin. So stick around, this one gets crazy. It all starts when Adam accuses Vinny of being too soft on Putin, even going so far as to imply that he's on Putin's payroll. This accusation sparks a fiery exchange, with emotions running high and the tension in the room thick enough to cut with a knife.
I love how you keep going to the gay route, which is hilarious.
I'm just saying you're a Putin sympathizer.
You're a
Putin sympathizer.
I'm telling you right now.
There's a specific moment when things start to unravel. A heated back and forth ensues about Putin's wealth, Nancy Pelosi, and whether Vinny is a Putin sympathizer.
If
you
anybody
served
on
in
the
the
left
U.S.
is watching,
Air Force.
Don't
You
talk
served
shit.
in the U.S. Air Force,
Don't even
yet
try
you're a
that
Putin
shit.
puppet,
Adam,
Vinny. It's crazy.
don't talk shit about my
expected
service.
more from you.
Adam, don't go there, because trust me, you're gonna regret it.
A little bit more on that one later. The conversation spirals into a chaotic mix of personal jabs and sharp retorts, with Vinny warning Adam not to disrespect his military service. The intensity only ramps up as accusations of bias and hypocrisy fly across the table, with references to media networks like CNN, MSNBC, and even Russia's RT.
Hey, Russia TV, if you're listening,
Yeah.
and if you could locate the 20,000 emails of the love letters that Vinny has written to Putin, he's looking for a job on RTV, propaganda TV.
The situation escalates when Tucker Carlson's recent interview with Putin is brought up, leading to a fierce defense of Carlson's journalistic integrity. Vinny and Adam here argue over whether Carlson's portrayal of Russia is fair or dangerously misleading, with some accusing him of being a sellout and others defending his right to challenge mainstream narratives. Vinny went on to make a rather interesting analogy.
Putin said it himself. Yeah, I was expecting a harder interview. So, it's been lauded many times.
But he wasn't done, and Vinny then had more to add on to Bill Maher and Trump.
People are starving while they build these grandiose public homages to the great communist dictatorship of Stalin. So it's no wonder why they're the most amazing train stations in the world.
As the debate rages on, the podcast veers into a broader discussion about the media's role in shaping public perception, particularly around figures like Bill Maher and Stephen Colbert.
Johnny Carson and those late night where it's supposed to be fun and happy, that's a political activist. Like, why is he so insane? And it's happening, and it's shifting. With Bill, listen.
Vinny expresses his frustration with what they see as the media's double standards, especially in the context of Donald Trump's legal battles and the ongoing political polarization in the United States.
That type of shit really drives me crazy. It drives me nuts. Now and look, and Bill Maher, like, what? Why would you go over there? We know why he went over there.
What did Colbert say? What did Colbert say?
Stephen Colbert.
As the debate rages on, the conversation takes a wild turn, with Adam accusing Vinny of being a Putin sympathizer.
He's worth $200 billion. You're a friend.
Yeah,
How much is he paying you to
my
suck
friend,
his...
So it's like Nancy Pelosi. And I love how you keep going to the gay route, which is hilarious.
I'm just saying you're a Putin sympathizer.
That accusation is unsurprisingly met with a mix of shock, denial, and some awkward laughter to boot. What started as a discussion about media bias spirals into a heated exchange about Russia, propaganda, and whether the media has been feeding us a simplified narrative of good versus evil. In the end, these two realize that maybe, just maybe, the world isn't as black and white as it seems. Now, all of this controversy came from Tucker Carlson's interview with Vladimir Putin. According to analysts, during the 2+ hour chat, the ex-Fox News host, now an online commentator, mostly tiptoed around the Russian leader. This is the same Putin responsible for a brutal war in Ukraine that's claimed hundreds of thousands of lives. Anyone hoping for a tough, no-nonsense confrontation was likely left disappointed by the rambling interview, where even Tucker seemed lost at times. So instead of grilling Putin on the big issues, like the credible accusations of Russian war crimes or the imprisonment of opposition leader Alexei Navalny, Carlson gave the guy a free pass. Putin had the floor to push his version of events, twisting history to suit his narrative without much pushback.
Do you think NATO is worried about this becoming a global war?
Right.
The threat I think you're referring to is a Russian invasion of Poland, Latvia.
At points, it even felt like Putin was giving Carlson a history lesson while the host sat there seemingly bewildered.
In one case, if Poland attacks Russia. Why? Because we have no interest in Poland, Latvia, or anywhere else. Why would we do that? We simply don't have any interest.
In short, Carlson blindly handed Putin a global stage to spread his propaganda with barely a challenge to any of his claims. Carlson didn't just let Putin talk, he also played along with some of the Russian president's wilder ideas. For example, Putin floated a wild conspiracy theory that the US government isn't actually run by its elected leaders, but by shadowy figures in the CIA who pull the president's strings like a puppet. The interview quickly became the top story on TASS, with Putin's claim that Ukraine is an artificial state front and center. They even dedicated a whole section of their site to special coverage of the interview. Meanwhile, RT, the English language channel that's been banned in much of the West, aired significant portions of the interview. Carlson used to be critical of the Russian government, but lately he's been singing a completely different tune, showing more sympathy towards Putin's regime and dragging the GOP along with him. His commentary on Russia's brutal war against Ukraine has been anything but supportive of Kyiv. Last year, he even went so far as to compare Vladimir Zelensky to vermin. You know, it's a good thing that the Sedition Act of 1918 is no longer in effect over 100 years later, or this dude would have ended up in prison for letting Vladimir Putin run the show like that. This shift in tone is exactly why Putin agreed to sit down with Carlson while keeping real journalists who might actually challenge him at arm's length for years. And look, you don't even have to take my word for it. Putin's spokesperson, Dmitry Peskov, flat out admitted that Carlson was chosen because he has a position that is different from the rest of Western media. There was one moment, though, when Carlson did lightly press Putin. Toward the end of the interview, he asked if Putin would be willing to release Evan Gershkovich, the Wall Street Journal reporter currently in prison in Russia.
I just want to ask you directly, without getting into the details of it or your version of what happened, if as a sign of your decency, you would be willing to release him to us and we'll bring him back to the United States.
While it was good to see Carlson advocate for his release, his wording didn't sit well with the Journal. Ted Mann, a reporter for the newspaper, slammed Carlson on X, calling it disgraceful for him to suggest that Evan was breaking their law. He wasn't, Mann added. Carlson knows that Evan is a law-abiding, decent reporter being held hostage for geopolitical leverage. He should be released immediately. The Wall Street Journal also issued a statement after the interview, standing firm. Evan is a journalist and journalism is not a crime. Any portrayal to the contrary is total fiction. Evan was unjustly arrested and has been wrongfully detained by Russia for nearly a year for doing his job, and we continue to demand his immediate release. However, the discussion between Adam and Vinny on the podcast was definitely intense. When it comes to picking sides in their debate on the broader conversation about Putin and Russia, it really kind of depends on what angle you're looking at. Adam might lean more toward a certain perspective, while Vinny could have a completely different take, which is what made the debate so fiery. So what about you? Where do you land on this particular topic of debate? Let us know in the comments section down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in our next episode.